Okay, share screen. Gonna be window, entire screen. Okay, perfect. Okay, we are live. Okay, so I'm officially going to be covering the Tennessee 7th District special election results. And as you can see here, it is already a extremely close race in a place where you would never normally expect it. This is the Nashville, Tennessee suburbs and what some could consider exurbs and rural areas of the western part of Nashville, and in this district reaching all the way down to Wayne County in southern Tennessee. So as you can see here, we are already getting some results in. We have 44% of the results in. It looks like Nashville has come in pretty strong, with Afton Bain leading in this race. This is kind of a stop the count moment for Democrats, not expecting to really be up this early, but with 44% of the vote in, this does look very good for Democrats, but there's a lot of rural regions that need to have their ballots counted. And in addition, this more conservative Williamson County needs to get counted, which could really easily split the difference of the 4,000 votes that the Democrats currently leading by, with 44% of the votes in. Now, the New York Times seems to think that this was actually bad for the Democrat, currently considering, in terms of bad for the Democrat, in terms of the election, that just winning the election. This result is absolutely just going to be a dominating victory for the Democrats in the sense of how close it is. This is a normal year 22-point race. Democrats have no business winning in Tennessee by any means, but today it's looking like they really have a good chance at making a major upset. So like I said, you can see the 2024 results for this exact same district. Mark Green completely defeated Megan Barry here. 2022, similar election with similar turnout, actually. You could see Mark Green defeated Democratic nominee Odessa Kelly. This is if you're a Democrat, you are essentially a sacrificial lamb in this district historically. But as you can see today, the Democrats are making it competitive with Afton Bain going against Matt Van Epps. So the big thing here that we can see is the county flip of Clarksville, the city, the county that Clarksville is within. It's Montgomery County. Afton Bain is at 51%, and Matt Van Epps is at 48%. This is a pretty big flip considering Republicans got 61% of the vote in this county in 2024. That is 1 year ago, 1 year and 1 month ago. So already a pretty big flip. This election may kind of be an element of, national opinions about Trump, but really a lot of it has to do with the dynamic of the bases in both parties, where Democratic voters have really seemed to come out in large droves in off-year elections. And this is another instance of it where it may not be that they have the numerical advantage, but they definitely have the advantage in getting people out to the polls in these special elections that are on off-year, off-day elections, where they really could tilt the entire House of Representatives with this seat. As we see the results in right now, this raw count is looking pretty good for the Democrats, 52% to 46%. You can see with the New York Times forecasting here, they're expecting it to be around a Republican victory, about 3.2%. Now, what we're really going to need to see is the votes coming in from Williamson County to make a definitive look on how this is going to go. Williamson County is expected to go more for the Republican than the Democrat. But as you can see with Montgomery County, Afton Bain flipped it in comparison to the 2024 results. So as you can see here, the Democrat got 37% of the vote. Here, the Democrat got 51% of the vote. That's a very big flip. May not be enough to be enough to win this election, though. As you can see here, in Davidson County, the Democrat. Oh, give me 1 second. Hello, Stella.
Hello.
Sorry to interrupt. Okay. Okay, sorry. Okay. All good. Okay, so as you can see here, the results are coming in, and we have a pretty good lead for the Democrat right here, but we need to see more results before we can make a definitive prediction here. Now, I kind of want to see what the New York Times thinks, because they think that Montgomery County is going to go more towards the Republican in the end with 100% of the vote count in, and they think that Williamson County will get this 4,000 vote boon for the Republican. And that could really be the deciding factor on who wins this election here, to see how much Williamson County flipped. As you can see, this is a suburban district of Nashville, so it still could, be a little bit more favorable to the Democrats than other regions, but it's getting pretty far out into the suburbs where the voting coalition would be much more likely to be Republicans, as we can see in this 2024 seat. We're at 45% of the vote in. We're getting trickles of results from these more rural counties. In the end result, they could really make a big difference, but as you can see here, the vote margins are small portions compared to the populations in Davidson County and Montgomery County. So there's a really big difference there. We're getting more results in. That was a big drop from one of the more rural counties here. So yeah, we have 100% of Wayne County, not to be confused with Wayne County, Detroit, but 100% of the results in. As you can see, that is about a 10 to 12% flip more towards the Democrat. One thing that you can kind of see right here is Democrats might have just maximized their base in these counties, where the Democrat got 311 votes. As you can see, in 2022, the Democrat only got 370 votes. So while the margin is closer, it seems to largely be because Republicans are not turning out. One thing that we have to take into account here is the fact that the weather is particularly bad in this area. The weather is particularly bad in this area of Tennessee today. And Democrats have historically, in more recent years, went heavily for Democrats in the past have went heavily for voting in. Sorry, I'm a little distracted. But Democrats in the past have heavily went for voting in these counties, or mail-in voting and early voting. And that's a lot of the results that we're getting right now. But election day turnout is going to be a little bit stifled by the fact that the weather was not as good as it could have been going in. So let's see as more of it gets dropped in. We have a lot of the results in, okay, they just corrected their result to show that not all the votes for Wayne County are in. But these rural counties are 100% counted right now. And the New York Times is considering that the race is going to be more like a R plus 3.7 in the end. So we'll have to wait and see how that's going to go. But as of right now, the Democrat is in the lead in this historically Republican plus 22 district. One thing to watch is going to be Davidson County. So let's compare with the 2024 results. This was 67 to 30% of the vote in 2024. That's just 1 year ago. Today, it's going 85-15 based on the early votes that have been counted. Election day votes might crater that difference a little bit, but as of right now, that's extremely good results for the Democrat to be getting. Other things we might want to be looking out for are the county by county flips. So as you can see, the first is going to be, actually, let's go just specifically for counties that have 100% of the result in. Perry County was 81% to the Republican, 18% to the Democrat in 2024. In 2025, it looks like 13% shift away from the, or no, not 15. That would be 6% shift away from the Republican and about a 5% shift to the Democrat. It'll be about 11% in total shift. It's definitely not going to be enough to make up the difference to win the election overall, but it's making it a lot closer than what we'd expect it to be. A lot more votes just got counted. Here's Decatur County, 79% to 20%. Same thing in 2024. That's about a 6 to 7% shift. Now, these counties, as you can see, this is only 2,000 votes for the Republican, a net of 1,500. See, they were netting around 3,500 votes here. So these counties where the Republicans are kind of trying to maximize their votes, the turnout's just not there to really get the results that they need to make a domineering victory here, one that would completely stun out the Democrats. But it might just be enough for them to win, as the New York Times projection keeps going more and more in favor of the Republican. Before we make a projection, though, I definitely would like to see some results from Williamson County. It's going to be make or break to determine how much this election is going to be, or what's going to decide this election. As we can see from the 2024 results from last year, this Cheatham County is about, if we just go by the early result we have, pretty significant, around a 20% shift. If that same shift appears in Williamson County, it might cause there to be more of a race on our hands. But as this margin keeps shifting more and more to the Republicans' favor, I would say that it's not going to be looking good for Afton Bain in terms of winning the election. In terms of bringing on momentum against Republicans, this is going to scare them from essentially having a single House rep resign or leave Congress or anything, because this is a safe seat, as safe as a seat could be for a Republican. And to make this a race down to the hair where they're not calling it already is particularly concerning. Now, what we can look at is some old results of other special elections here. So let's look at the Florida 6th Congressional District special election. This is a pretty similar race in which now Congressional Representative Randy Fine is the victor in this election. So we can show here, this is going to be the Associated Press results here. So this was another plus 20 Republican seat that happened around it was on April 1st. So this was about 8 months ago, much earlier in the administration. Randy Fine defeated the Democrat Josh Will in this election by around 14% of the vote in this kind of Republican plus 20 district. The first district, if I remember, was quite similar, where it was another Republican plus 20 district where the Republican won by about 14. The Democrats didn't really have any business winning these races, but they did make them a lot closer and a little bit more competitive. Now, this one is a Republican plus 20 district in Tennessee where, as you can see, there's been an official race change with the 50% in from Williamson County now. And I think that this is kind of the nail in the coffin for the Afton Bend campaign for the victory. So I would actually say that this almost definitively convinces me that the election is over for Afton Bend. I think it's only going to get worse from her going forward, because this drop is particularly bad for her, unless they're only counting the election day votes first, which I highly doubt. So she got around, still pretty well, like a 20% difference from the 2024 results. But this is in a plus 22 Republican seat. So she's going to need to maximize every single ballot she can get, to the point where this county is going to need to almost flip for her. And it's just simply not happening right now. And all of the people that, were convinced that she had a good chance here, it was going to have to go through this Williamson County district. And I can only see kind of the margins getting worse if we start counting election day votes following this point. However, she still is holding a lead in Montgomery County and Davidson County. So if there's more votes out of Nashville that haven't been properly counted, or if the New York Times doesn't have the best prediction model going forward, it's really anyone's guess. But as of right now, I think the Republican is in pole position to win this election. Now, let's see if there's any more full results in. As you can see, there's just a big expansion of the lead for the Republican here. And we're going to expect that with election drops, because each drop is going to likely be from a county that the Democrat is not performing well in. And Afton Bend is likely going to be, losing away further and further away from the margin. Another thing, let's compare with the 2022 midterm. As you can see, way more ballots were cast in 2022 than this off-year special election. So we have pretty low turnout. And with the way that the turnout is, likely gonna not be too good for Afton Bend or the Republican, really, in terms of getting a domineering victory for the Republican, or for the Democrat in terms of getting a shocking win. She was going to need to have extremely high turnout in Nashville that just completely overstated the other counties, which it does appear that she did acquire some of. But as we continue to get votes counted, it's looking more and more like around a 5% victory for the Republican, which is a horrible result for the Republicans. This is a safe seat, where you would never expect to have to worry about, now being jeopardized in an off-year election. But there is one element of politics where no matter how, good of a showing this is for the Democrats, you have to keep in mind winning is really what's most important here. There was a lot of money that was spent by both the Republicans on the Democrats to win different types of voters, to bring different people out. And while that might have benefited the Democrats and carried their momentum in a state like Tennessee, it's ultimately not going to make any big differences because they aren't going to win tonight overall. And they're going to need that extra vote, that reliable vote for them, if they want to continue to, be a thorn in the side for the Trump administration at this time in the House. If this election flipped, it would be a completely tough time for Trump because it would be one less vote in the House that they could rely on, and it could really, cause them to have trouble with budgeting and legislation and important things that they've taken for granted up to this point, with their own caucus kind of being in disarray with such a slim House majority. With Marjorie Taylor Greene resigning as well, that'll vacant another seat for Republicans. I believe she's resigning at the start of 2026. So this is going to be creating a lot of turmoil for the Republican Party. And getting this seat back will benefit them. However, it could still be a sign of future problems to come, because you get a plus 22 seat, you're going to win. But say a Republican in a plus 5 or a plus 10 seat, either resigns or, God forbid, passes away, something like that, it could really open up the door for Democrats to catch another seat in the House and make that majority even slimmer. So the New York Times is readjusting their results to be a little bit more favorable for the Democrat. I'm not sure if that was because one of the rural drops just made it closer or what exactly. But from what it looks like here is that the election day votes in Nashville, Davidson County, and Montgomery County will not be enough to really carry the Democrat over the top, something that I was expecting ultimately from the results earlier. This one was a little bit more low-key today, so there's not going to be as many people on. But if anyone does want to leave a comment, please feel free to. Let's see if I can bring in a couple more people. As you can see here, the live results are still showing. We're getting a couple drops here and there. Okay, one moment here. Okay. So as we can see here, we have 58% of the votes in now. Matt Van Epps has around, we just got another drop. So now we went all the way up to 60%. Matt Van Epps has 50% or 50.7%, and Efton Bain has 48.2%. Now, a lot of this final results a lot of these final results are going to be contingent on the, election day votes of Nashville coming in. It could flip it a little bit closer, but what I'm expecting and what the New York Times seems to be showing here is that this lead's going to get a little bit better for Matt Van Epps, get up to around 5%. And then with the way that the votes are going to continue coming in from all the different counties, it'll stabilize around 5%. Most of the counties are going to be Republican. The only one that might not be Democrat, or the only one that might continue being Democrat other than Davidson County, could be Montgomery County. But even this Williamson County, suburban county of Nashville, as we're getting more and more results, seems to show that the shift was just not great enough for the Democrat to win here. And you can kind of see the shift. This is around just ballparking it, around 13% shift from Williamson County as we get more votes in. With 45% of the votes standing, you could expect it to get potentially a little closer. Any thoughts on the implications if Bain actually wins? Williamson County is more reporting than Davidson. Yeah, I would say the reason why Bain is looking so good right now has a lot more to do with the fact that a lot of the early vote came in Nashville. I think her margin is going to get better because there's a lot more votes to count, but the election day vote is going to be way better for the Republican, as we can see in all these counties. I mean, if Bain actually won, that would be crazy. It would kind of create a crisis for the Republicans. This would be like essentially a Bernie Sanders liberal winning in a 22 Republican district. That would be absolutely insane. And it would essentially, I don't know, the Democrats could run a 50-state strategy if that was how bad the Republicans were down bad. I mean, they could throw in Senate candidates at like Arkansas and have a chance if that was how bad the Republicans were doing. Ultimately, I did kind of think people saying that this was going to be a win for the Democrats was a little bit of kind of too much hope for them. But the race is a lot closer than a lot of people could have expected. If you just look at historic results and even with the expectations, like there was one poll that came out showing the Democrat within 5%. That was probably with expected turnout being lower. Republicans were forced to, send out Trump to do all kinds of different advertisements. They were really forced to spend money in this special election to protect their House majority. And they're not going to be able to do that in 2026. And I mean, I think it's pretty clear now, I can call it, that Matt Van Epps won this election as we get more like 71% in from Montgomery, and it's just absolutely not enough. I mean, that's only about, give or take, a 14-15% shift. They needed 22%. But, it's definitely enough to really, I mean, this is a 15% shift in a safe seat for a Republican. So the implications for that, I mean, if we have a 15% shift nationwide in the 2026 House race, that would be a complete electoral bloodbath for Republicans. Even if they gerrymandered every single state, some of those gerrymanders wouldn't hold through, and they would risk losing a lot of seats. 15%. I don't think that nationally it'll be at that big of a flip, but it's kind of showing more and more so that it could be headed in that direction, as the economy is still very unstable and could, kind of collapse by 2026, could create a lot of surprising results. One thing about this, I mean, this is a district that, while it does have a lot of parts of Nashville in it, this is kind of a good district to use as a barometer for some other regional races. I mean, obviously, Middle Tennessee is a little bit different than Ohio, But this result would give you a lot of belief in the idea that Sherrod Brown could win statewide in the Senate race in Ohio. And I think that's kind of an implication that this race could have. Like an election like that, a Democrat might be able to win, at least a popular Democrat that doesn't have any scandals. Afton Bain seemed to kind of fit that mold. I mean, her biggest scandal was her having some soundbite saying she didn't like country music, which, I mean, in Nashville, you kind of have to placate to that base, I think, a little bit. But, it really didn't hurt her too much in the sense that she outran the 2024 candidate by 15%. I don't really want to, directly compare to the Kamala numbers here, but I would assume that the Kamala numbers in the 2024, I mean, I don't actually want to look that up because I don't think that the results will be that perfect cut in the district, and I don't think it would be helpful. But I assume Kamala performed pretty similar to this. Maybe she got outran by like a point or two. But this is a 15% shift overall. Pretty stark, but ultimately it's not going to be enough for the Democrat to win. And special elections, as the Democrats learned in 2024, I mean, Democrats performed particularly well in special elections in 2023. A lot of them have to do with just getting your base to turn out properly. And it's not really a good barometer for determining if the entire nation is completely convinced of your cause. I think that the Democrats had a lot of trouble in 2024 because a lot of people who are low turnout, low propensity voters came out and really heavily, swung things away from them. And as you can see here, Democrats might get 45% of the vote, 46, 47%. I'm not entirely sure how much it'll be once Nashville finally, drops its last ballots. But my projection, maybe Bain gets around 47% of the vote, 46% of the vote in the end. Maybe 46% sounds about right because she is still going to hemorrhage vote shares in a lot of these exurban counties. So as we can see from that, a loss is still a loss, even if you crunch it down 15%. Democrats will get this as a lot of momentum. It's going to, make a lot of different, candidates that might think that they don't want to run for a risky R+10 seat to run. A lot of good candidates might be convinced to run by a result like this, because this is still significantly better than the Florida results. Like, I'm going to pull up the Florida special election results. This is a 15% shift as opposed to more like a 10%, 11% shift in April. So this was Randy Fine. I think this county was about a R+20 county. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think this was around R+20, R+22. And the Democrat, put up a good fight, got about, 14% below in both this district and then in the first district. It was a very similar race. What I'm expecting is, I just lost my results tab. Let's see. Here we are. Okay. What I'm expecting is this is going to convince a lot of these Democrats that are in 2026 candidates that are going to be running. It's going to convince a lot of them they have a chance. And it'll make it a lot harder for Republicans to win competitive races because they'll be defending more safe seats that they wouldn't think that they would have to defend in a normal year. But what I was trying to get at earlier is in a special election race like this, if you lose, you still do lose the race. You don't get the seat out of it, and a loss is still a loss. And you have no guarantee that everything's going to shift back to normal in 2026 in this district, and it's going to be back to being an R+20 district. I don't think if I were Afton Bain, I would run again in this district, because who wants to be a sacrificial lamb candidate? I don't think this is a winnable district for Democrats, but I think they still need to run candidates that are strong in a general midterm in every district. You never know when a scandal is going to happen, but as you can see here, this is probably their best shot at taking out a district like this. And we're getting a little bit more of Nashville in. That I just sensed that as her margin got closer here, but the New York Times, I think they earlier were overestimating how much Nashville was going to vote. And as this projection earlier today, at the best for Bain, this was R plus, I believe, 3.2 or something, or it might have been 3.9. As you can see now, that's doubled to around R plus 6.7. The New York Times is lucky their needle isn't out right now, because it would have looked really bad. It would have shifted heavily. This is essentially their needle. It lets them get away with it without getting in trouble. But a 3% shift is a pretty bad projection. And they must have predicted that there would be more Bain votes in either Montgomery, Nashville, or Williamson County. My prediction for why that happened is the election day turnout was actually higher than what the projections were, and more Republicans decided to come out, and more median voters decided to come out, just based on how much money was spent on this race. I mean, Trump really tried to talk about it in the last couple of days. There was a lot of focus in on it. The Democrats thought that they'd kind of, slip their way through and get a lucky win here, but it's still a R plus 20 district. They didn't really have any business winning this district, but I think they did scare the Republicans. I do kind of want to see if anyone does have comments. I want to see if anyone, any comments or questions, if anyone has it for me. But yeah, we can see here, I don't know why the New York Times hasn't called it yet. This is almost 100% a guarantee. I can't see them pulling 10,000 votes out of the hat for Bain out of Nashville. So, I will definitely call it for Matt Van Epps. If I were him, I would sigh of relief. He just won a Republican safe seat in a special election, and he'll probably never have to worry about losing the seat in the future unless he has a massive scandal. But as we can see here, though, Republicans nationwide should really kind of be a little wary about this result, because this is not a good result. This is a 15% shift from 1 year ago. And now it's R plus 7.1. So the Republican margin, the way their kind of projection has been sliding away as more votes come in, my projection is more that this could end up being R plus 8 in the end. So if that's R plus 8, that's still from what it was just a year ago, give or take 13-14% shift. And it's a much bigger shift in this district than it was in the Florida districts. So this is kind of a sign that on the national ballot, in these more, specific races with Trump not on the ballot, he's going to face a lot of trouble in 2026. I do think Afton, performed extremely well. She performed in a way that I don't think a lot of people thought she could have. Definitely an overperformance on her part, but it's gonna be more of a motivation race for 2026, as it'll lead to more changes. We still have we still have 11 months until we see these midterms. So we have plenty of time for all kinds of things to change. The entire national political environment could change to either the benefit or the benefit of the Republicans or the benefit of the Democrats. So there's no way of knowing how much that will flip. But as we can see right now, it's a win for the Republicans, but we have to say that it was a Pyrrhic victory for the Republicans, as even in their safe. I mean, you couldn't draw a more ruby red district than this. It has like that little chip of Nashville, but this is a gerrymandered district that is designed to be a Republican win netter, and this is definitely pretty scary for them, because there's plenty of other districts that aren't 20 plus districts like this one. And in 2026, they could lose a lot of these gerrymandered districts if they don't play it careful. And as they look to gerrymander more states, I mean, Indiana and I think there were a few others. This could run into a problem, because say you do get a massive blue wave, you could have those gerrymanders break, and then all around it could cause big victories for Democrats. So they have to be careful whenever they do that. That is a 12% shift towards the Democrat in Williamson County. That's 10% off the margin she needed to win, but still pretty significant. Another, this is about 14-15%, it looks like, in Montgomery County. I think there's a college here. I'm not entirely certain. I did see some type of news about that. Yeah, no matter how the night goes in Ruby Red, Tennessee, it was good for Afton. I definitely think it was great for Afton, and she has a lot of chance. I mean, she might go into Nashville politics. I'm not entirely certain what her background was before this. I probably should have done a little bit of research on her, but let's do a little bit of research while we have time. So she was already a House rep in Tennessee. She kind of did social services, community stuff, from Knoxville. I'm not entirely certain if Knoxville is within. I would assume that it's not in this district. But yeah, it looks like she performed pretty well. I assume she's going to have a bigger role in Tennessee politics in the future. I don't think that Tennessee is going to be, flipping to the Democrats anytime soon statewide, but she might have more stuff going on in Nashville going forward. Bain was DSA endorsed. Does that affect the course of 2026 primaries at all? I mean, Bain is a pretty left-wing Democrat. I think she's definitely on the, proverbial like Bernie Sanders progressive wing of the party. I think the reason why that happened is because the Democrats didn't really care to run a establishment sacrificial lamb in this race, because they didn't think it would be competitive. I don't know. I mean, we had plenty of candidates of this ilk run in 2017 special elections when Trump first lost, or no, when Trump was president in 2016. This was kind of the key. This was an very similar race. This is kind of an election that was used to predict the blue wave. 2017 House of Representatives election in Montana. Pretty close election. If you saw this, you would think 2018 would be a closer race. I mean, even in 2018, it was pretty close, still 5%. This is a much less Republican district. But as you can see in 2020, when you have a national environment, it shifted, and also not Greg Gianforte. I think he was a little bit of a bad candidate for the Republicans. As you can see, it shifted back, and now they split it in half, and now both seats are Republican. I don't know. I mean, I would say I wouldn't really take any. I don't think that her ideological bend really mattered for the Democrats, because they spent on this race just because they wanted this final margin to be bad for Republicans, to make it look like there was going to be a blue wave coming forward. which I do think, if anything, this race does show, number one, that Democrats are way more likely to come out in off special elections, something we already knew. Even when it comes to a state like Tennessee, they're more likely to come out. Number two, it's showing that the Democrats' national ballot is the Democrats are in a pole position to win the midterms based on their national margins. I don't think that this really is going to swing a lot of in more competitive races. I think Democrats know how to spend their money in the more Democratic establishment, and I don't think this is going to benefit any DSA endorsed candidates or more progressive candidates in the future. I mean, Rob Quist, the point I was trying to make earlier, Rob Quist was kind of like a Bernie Sanders, left wing, bluegrass, country music, populist guy. And he ran a pretty good race, but it wasn't enough. I think Kansas 4 had a special election as well. This is a perfect example. This was a Bernie Sanders endorsed Democratic candidate. Republicans ran away, the Democrats didn't care to run anyone in this race. It was April 2017. Trump had just won the election, and James Thompson ran. He won one county and made it close in this extremely, Republican Kansas district. He tried running again in 2018 to no avail. He got clobbered when he had to deal with an actual, full midterm base. So that's my opinion on a race like this. I think the thing is you have to win them. And that's the key. Like, you have to win special elections for them to be more than, this Pyrrhic victory type situation for the governing party. If you get it really close in a Trump 20 district, it could, change your mind a little bit. But I think you're just wasting time if you're, running. Like, Afton Bain should not waste her time running for re-election. It's kind of a grifter move to do that. As you can see here, Kansas was like, after Brownback, people were ready to vote Democrats everywhere, but now Kansas has kind of realigned itself more right, and maybe Ron Estes kind of entrenched himself a little bit more and presidential year turnout. But this is the exact same problem. Now, in more competitive races, Houston 5th, I think it was this one. It could have been the 6th district, or it could be completely wrong. Or let's see, Texas special election. I believe this was to fill the seat of the guy who died in Congress, and it was a Democratic election. This is another one. It was District 18. Yeah. Sylvester Turner died. He was the former mayor. Special district. Yeah. So you had these candidates, and like Christian Menefee, I think he's going to ultimately win it. He's kind of, I think he's a run-of-the-mill Democrat. I don't think that he's not running on Medicare for all. He's not DSA endorsed. He's not like a progressive. This is like a race where you have to run someone that you have to win these, blue districts. If there's going to be a big progressive shift nationwide, you have to win these races. And I don't think either of these candidates are known for being particularly progressive. This is someone who's very qualified, obviously. Emory University, BA, and Harvard University, JD, quite qualified to be a congressional representative. But I don't think she's running on any particularly progressive, policy issues. And as a result, I don't think that there's going to be any big national shifts as a result of that. Okay, so we just had another Nashville drop. That's pretty much everything that Afton could have, and it's a crime that this race hasn't been called yet by the New York Times. Matt Van Epps won this election. He won this election an hour ago. I can't see why the New York Times hasn't flipped it or wrote it down. With every vote in Nashville, I mean, there's not a single county that could give Bain the victory here. So after all the votes are counted, this is surprising. They marked it back down to 6.2%. There were probably some votes in Nashville that they didn't expect to be there in their model. Kind of shows that their model was kind of trash. I don't know what they were doing exactly, but usually Nate Cohn knows what he's doing. So I don't know why his model was so bad. It was very good. He didn't have a needle today because it would have been all over the place. But based on the final results and all the projections here, R+6 victory for the Republicans is extremely Pyrrhic. And I don't think that it's a good sign for them going into 2026. To go back into the idea that more progressive candidates could emerge, I mean, we're starting to see some primary challenges of prominent Democrats, but I don't know if there's really a big progressive advocacy organization. I mean, Justice Democrats did 2018. They were able to take out 3 or 4, maybe 5 at the time, competitive, primaries, but there's not like a big money pit. There's a lot of anger that voters have towards, their incumbents, but a lot of people can't name their own congressional representative, and a lot of people may be mad at a leader like Chuck Schumer and want more pressure on Democrats, but they're still going to vote for their run-of-the-mill Democratic congressperson because, I don't know, I don't think that it's going to bode well for progressives because ultimately they need money to win a lot of these elections. They need money, and they need something even more important than money is a cadre of like highly experienced competitive candidates. And Afton Bain was a perfect person to run for this district. There were some, centrist, people on Twitter that were making the argument that she was too liberal to run in this district and a moderate would have won. And I think that's completely a dumb way to think in American politics, especially in a special election like this. You don't win this election exclusively on convincing people of the other party to vote for you. You win an election on turning out your base. And I don't think Bain was, I think she was the best candidate for the race because she was a House representative that was qualified and capable of running, and she ran a great race. A younger person that is capable of, doing good video content to, get voters to vote for them and convince people to, vote for them. That's absolutely what they need. So in order for progressives to win, or more left flank candidates in general, they're going to need to have money and they're going to need to have a lot of experience. And if you're going to see a lot of these, like 30-year-old, progressive candidates running, they're not going to win competitive primaries unless they have a war chest and, good organizations pushing them forward, or if they have the experience and constituency favor, you still have to run machine politics in a lot of Democratic areas. And, in a race like California, Pelosi's seat, this is a Pelosi seat election. So this is going to be 2026. I forget what seat, but so this is an article. Oh shit. I don't have any of these. This is why maybe what seat does Pelosi represent? I should know this. It's the 11th seat. So yeah, let's see the 11th district. Okay, so Ballotpedia is fine. I'll use this source to analyze this. So this is going to be a competitive election coming up, and this is to replace. Thank you, Ballotpedia, for allowing me to use an ad blocker on your website. That is a very big blessing. So some of these people I don't even really know, and these are people officially filed. So this isn't even the biggest field, but this is to replace Pelosi. And there's one person that is not included here that would actually be competitive too. So you have Saikat Chakrabarty, who is kind of the more progressive candidate, but he did irritate the local DSA. So I don't know if he's actually going to get a lot of the backing that he is hoping for. And you have Scott Wiener, who is kind of a local Dem state senator who he has his own constituency in the city, and he has a very big established back. And he might be able to win it just based on that. But you also have a city councilwoman, or what they call city supervisor in San Francisco, Connie Chan, who's going to run, and she might be a good candidate for the district of San Francisco. I don't know if she's going to be able to wheel and deal, but she has a good, base of constituency and a lot of, the Chinese community in San Francisco. And progressives are going to need to be able to, number one, in the instance of like San Francisco, like not completely alienate the most progressive person in the race. Like, as you can clearly see, Saikat Chakrabarty is probably going to be in this race, but they're also going to have to be able to run the best candidate, which I'm not sure if Saikat is that. I mean, he has the money he needs to be competitive, so he might be able to do it there, but he might not be the best candidate for the race. I do kind of want to see what other people think about that, though. If more progressive candidates are going to get in the House. I do think there's going to be a lot of primaries, and this was how Democrats did get a lot of more competitive, or they got a few more progressive caucus members by, running a more progressive person in a open seat and just winning the election and then continuing it forward. But the DCCC and a lot of establishment Democratic money networks are always going to want to fund a moderate in flip districts. And statistically, they may actually be right that they may be able to flip those districts easier if they run a more moderate campaign. But I definitely think that having a national model of that is kind of incorrect, because I think individual candidates, regardless of their ideological background, can really, win or lose a race. I mean, Sherrod Brown, while he did lose his most recent election, was a stalwart. I mean, before Bernie Sanders, he would be considered one of the more progressive Democrats in the Senate. Well, not like before Bernie was in the Senate, but meaning before Bernie ran in 2016 and really redefined what progressive and left-wing politics were in America. Sherrod Brown was probably one of the most left-wing, Democrats in the Senate, and he represented Ohio, which was a swing seat, and he was very popular. So I think populist adjacent Democrats could carry forward. I mean, that's what Afton Bain is. So they're going to have to be these populist candidates, no scandal candidates. I mean, Plattner might win in the primary, but he's going to have a tough race in the general against Susan Collins. So I don't really want to touch the Plattner question for 2026 with a 10-foot pole, because I think it really could go any way with him, because he is what you would call like he's almost like a Democratic version of Trump, in the sense of not like how particularly like not in like his mannerisms or anything like that, but just like how many individual scandals he has churn out on a day-to-day basis. And Plattner, he might win his primary because he's running against someone that's 80 years old. But I think if he was running against a more establishment Democrat, he might run into some problems, even though he does have a big populist base backing him. But I think Democrats are going to have to run. I mean, for progressives, they're going to have to, in order to win primaries, they're going to have to run progressive candidates that are able to talk about issues that are kind of populist right now. So like being anti-AI data center buildup, that would be a really big thing that they could do. Democrats could run candidates that are advocating for, healthcare reform. I mean, I think that Democrats can really kind of reverberate a Medicare for all push. That's something that Van Hollen just came out in support of, and I believe he's the Maryland senator. If Democrats do that type of progressive Democrats go for those types of issues, I think they'll be successful if they run on the economy and if they run on those issues. If they run more on a purely politics line of just unseating establishment Democrats, I think they might get lucky in a couple seats. But I think like if you run in a race like Hakeem Jeffries versus Ose couldn't even get the DSA endorsement in that district. And I don't think he's going to have the juice to defeat like someone like Hakeem Jeffries, who's going to absolutely funnel money to his own election to defend himself over, swing district races. So I don't think there's going to be like a 2026, establishment like wipeout for the Democrats. I think they're going to be able to hold strong in a lot of their districts. And I think progressives will have some victories here, but I definitely don't think they have the mantle on the kind of resistance going forward. They definitely are winning a lot of the voters' minds, but they don't have the entrenched money interests, and they don't have a lot of the momentum they need carrying forward. They might be able to scare a few people from running, like not running. I mean, Chuck Schumer in 2028, I don't think Chuck Schumer is going to run for re-election at this point because there's so much, there's so much trouble he could run into politically, and he doesn't want to lose at this point of his career. So I think he could have some trouble there. Let's see, though. Does anyone have any other questions they have here? There's a few other interesting things I could cover. There was also this Jersey City mayor race. I mean, I don't know if this is indicative of anything, but the more progressive candidate won. This is another, progressive mayor that won. We already do have the Seattle race where Katie Wilson won, and we also have Zoran Mamdani, of course, where you have more progressive Democrat winning. And that's pretty key. I mean, look what we have right here. So James Solon, he was a city council member who represented a more left-leaning part of the city, and he completely stomped out a former governor who also, I mean, this is almost like a spit image of like the New York City mayoral race. You have a kind of like sex scandal, loser governor trying to run for a smaller mayoral election and getting beat by a progressive local politician. It's very similar to New York City. So this could show you more momentum, I would say, than Afton Bain going forward. But let's see. I want to pull back the Tennessee 7th results. We're still getting more results to come in, but I don't think there's much else to say. Oh yeah, 95% in. Pretty much every county that is of note came in. So in the final vote margins, Bain lost by around 12,600 votes, which is not a lot in the grand scheme of things. In the final, it looks like she lost by R+8. This is a flip map. So as you can see, Davidson voted 25% more Democratic. That is a huge flip. That's unexpected. But she would have needed to run the table on the net votes from Davidson County, and she just didn't do enough there in order to win. This is 12 points, 10 points more, 12 points more, 8.8 points more, 9.3. So I think this is kind of one thing we're going to see is cities and more suburban and exurban communities are going to shift a little bit more to the Democrats. But these pure rural counties, there's not much to really gain from. And as we hear a lot more about like big agriculture and a lot of farmers getting irritated with the Trump administration, I really don't think that we're going to see that politically in the pure rural regions. We're going to see a lot more of that in like more city centers in Iowa than we are going to see it in like the pure rurals. I think the pure rurals are going to be a Republican stronghold for decades, and I don't think that Democrats are going to be able to flip the margins there for a long time, as we can kind of see here. So with that, I could answer a question or two if anyone has any, but I am going to wrap it up soon because there's not too much else to cover here. It was a Pyrrhic victory for the Republicans around a give or take 14% shift for the Democrats, which is extremely impressive, but not going to win you the election in a safe Republican seat. I'm going to wait just for about 30 seconds to see if anyone has any questions, but I will wrap it up soon if anyone doesn't. I do think, wait, I'll do the Miami mayor. I'll do Miami mayor before I wrap it up. Just don't leave yet, everybody. Miami mayor election. Effort underway to hold recall election. I thought the results came out today. Let me double check. December 9th. Oh, I'm wrong. It doesn't come out until December 9th. So that's a full week away from today. So we're not going to have to cover that. Miami will come blue. I think that actually is true. You had me convinced that the Miami mayor race was going to be today, Ernesto. So let's see. This Rhode Island, Charleston Town Council special election. That isn't going to have any indication. That could just be a local candidate being able to win in a local race. Let's see. Okay, what county is? Okay, let me see. I will look that up. Robert Churchwell Elementary School. That's in Nashville proper. So, Dennis, your aunt voted in Nashville proper for Bain. That is kind of cool that you do have a relative that voted for in this election, though. I mean, it does kind of just show that this is one of many congressional seats, but there's people in every single, all across America, and their votes were heard today, kind of in a victory for the Republicans, but in a Pyrrhic one at that, where the Democrats are gaining a lot of support, and it could have some big implications into 2026. Hypothetical path forward for Bain. Nashville mayor. Oof, that is not anything I've ever studied. Nashville mayor election. Let me see. So You have this Freddie O'Connell guy who's the current mayor. My assumption is you can go for a second term, so I highly doubt that she would run for mayor here. I think that this is already, I think she has a future career forward, but I don't know what she's going to be able to do because I don't think she's going to be able to run citywide for Nashville mayor, but she might be able to do it. Really would depend on how people feel about this guy. He seems to be pretty popular if he just won 2 years ago with 64% of the vote. Granted, he did run against a Republican. And there were a lot of other Democrats in the race that were competing. So there could be a future for her, but there's no way to really say. And again, I am going to say again, this is a very terrible model by New York Times. I mean, this is a 6% shift on what they had earlier for what they expected the final result to be. And they got like one drop from Nashville and it went like 6%. Then now that they get more rural drops again, it's going back to 8%. Very bad needle today from New York Times. Everything else, obviously the look and everything is perfect, but I don't think that their needle work was really that good. But to recap, it was a Pyrrhic victory for the Republicans today, around a 14% shift towards the Democrats in this or the Tennessee 7th seat, but a 14% shift from 2024. Just ballparking the math there. Obviously, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me there, but about a 14% with everything together. Maybe let me see actually. Maybe more like 12 to 13%. They're not showing the one county there. Why would they not show Davidson County? I'm not sure. But okay, that should be all for today. That is awesome, though, that you did have a relative that voted in this election, Dennis. And that's cool that she was excited to vote. It's extremely important. But I think that's cool that, just a local candidate was able to inspire, your relative to vote for them. And this is one thing, I will, before I go, one thing that is a little irritating about gerrymandering is that you have these competitive, these constituencies. And in a place like Nashville, this district or the city is split into 3 different, congressional districts that all vote Republican in the end, I think. And this is what gerrymandering does. I mean, it takes your community and, it forces you into this competitive or this non-competitive district where you don't really have any, say. And it's kind of a gross thing. And, it was good to have, a candidate finally, inspire people that maybe wouldn't have normally voted into thinking that they had a good chance at winning today. And they do have that to be excited about in the end. But hopefully there's more efforts to get rid of gerrymandering federally, because right now both parties are having a field day at doing it wherever they possibly can to try and maximize their congressional seat margins. But it is just in a principled way, pretty gross how you can split up a city, 3 different ways and, make it so that they don't really have effective political representation just because you can, which is kind of what Tennessee is doing here. But yeah, as we can see, every race can be a little bit more competitive. But yeah, finally, with maybe it might be as bad as 9 in the final, but still definitely a better result than the Florida districts earlier this year, and a bad sign for Republicans going into 2026. That should be all for now. Goodbye, everyone.